All right, welcome back to the comic log for June. I have a ton of trade paperbacks to talk about, and I was thinking about how I'm going to do the comic log moving forward. Whether this is your first episode or you've been here from the beginning, I'm going to talk about my ongoings a little less, and especially because I feel like I don't say a lot of new stuff when it comes to them. Everything that I have within my ongoing poll list is stuff that I really enjoy reading. So if it doesn't have like a concluding arc, or if it's something that is not new, like for example, I will talk about Avengers Armageddon issue 1. I will talk about Absolute Catwoman issue 1. But outside of those and like a couple of other single issues that I have here, I'm not going to talk about ongoings as much as I did before. Thankfully, I read a ton of trade paperbacks, and some that I forgot to include last month, actually, also within the last episode. So we'll get into that stuff first. First is Marvel. So I read these Daredevil trade paperbacks. So I bought all of these during Free Comic Book Day. My local comic book store, Fourth World Comics, they had I believe it's 20% off during Free Comic Book Day. So these were going to be cheaper than if I were to buy them on Amazon. So we got Daredevil, Cold Day in Hell, and then I had both of the Electra Nachos' Daredevil runs or miniseries that they did with Erica Schultz, I believe is her name. I know the last name is Schultz. Let me see if I got the first name right. Yes, Erica Schultz. So we got Daredevil Woman Without Fear, and then the sequel series, which is Daredevil Unleash Hell. First up, Cold Day in Hell. This is a what-if story of when Daredevil becomes old, what kind of happened to him, and sort of what goes on within this 3-issue miniseries. It is written by Charles Soule and art done by Steve McNiven. It is great. It is honestly one of these series that I didn't want to pick up when it was serializing, just because I was like, it's only 3 issues and they're going to release the trade pretty fast. And I'm glad I picked up the trade because this, for one thing, hardcover, great. And then on top of that, I'm just able to blitz through it all within one go. If you like Daredevil, you will like this story. That's all I could really say. Like I said, the premise is pretty much Matt Murdock is very, very old, and sort of how does that lead into him doing Daredevil stuff one more time? So yeah, if you like Daredevil, definitely give this a shot. It is readily available at Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, etc. Now with this series, I did not want to read these at first just because I was like, oh, like they're just like mini-series with Electra Nachos' Daredevil. I'm not exactly that interested. But if you've been following the Daredevil Born Again Season 3 leaks, there's a certain character within one of these books that appears within the upcoming season. And I was like, I kind of want to see where the origins of this character leads. So I'm not going to say who it is. They may or may not be on the cover, but both of these reads were very, very good. I think it definitely fleshes out this version of Daredevil a lot more. And yeah, fun reads. This one is definitely a lot more fun just because it is the Marvel Red Band, so they're able to show like the blood and like the violence a lot clearer. This series did not have the sort of Red Band title, but still, like I said, both series are great. I think if you could find them for pretty cheap, definitely check them out, especially if you like Daredevil. It's a no-brainer. Okay, so before we get into the slew of just like DC and mostly Batman books, I started to read a Amazing Spider-Man run because I've heard so many great things about it, and it is JMS, J. Michael Straczynski's run on Spider-Man. This is a very well-known sort of run on the character. This is the iconic moment of when Aunt May finds out that Peter is Spider-Man, and they sort of have a dialogue within a single issue about it. It is great stuff, and I only read 2/3 of like the first Modern Epic collection, which, like, by the way, Marvel has such a hard time keeping up with like printing of things. I don't know why, because the first Epic collection for JMS's Amazing Spider-Man released only a year ago, and it is out of print. It is completely out of stock. You're gonna have to pay like $100 for it, and it's ridiculous. I decided to go and buy them through these older trades, and it has been so much cheaper for me personally. I found this at a local toy store for like $8. I found this online for like 10 to 15, and I only read these two, and this one just came in the mail. I got this at Gmart. This was literally their last copy. I got it for $18 after shipping, and if you look on eBay, this one could go for like $24, maybe even like $30, $40. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. Like, this is not even like a Epic collection or anything, but these trades are definitely getting a lot more sought after because of that first volume of the Epic collection just being sold out everywhere. The other two Epics have come out, which I will definitely pick those up after I read this, but Anyways, this is a very, very good run on Spider-Man. It really does hone in on just like Peter Parker and sort of like Spider-Man as like just as a character. This is also the start of when Peter becomes a high school teacher, so that was kind of interesting. And also there is a issue within here, not just like I think it's actually within the second volume. Yeah, so this volume actually has the sort of 9/11 issue, which was like obviously pretty like iconic and like historic within like Marvel Comics back then. So, you know, you kind of just see all of the Marvel heroes helping out the firefighters and sort of like the actual real life heroes in terms of what happened after 9/11. But within this first volume, there's a issue where Peter stops a mass shooting. And I was like, yo, what the fuck? Like, that was actually like kind of crazy for them to like even like do that back in the day. And the fact that is still like a relevant topic within 2026 is low-key kind of sad. But the fact that, you know, JMS was able to implement so much stuff within these first couple of issues within his run is like amazing and like outstanding. I'm not even talking about like the main sort of driving force behind like these stories, because I think that if you like Spider-Man and you want to pick up a modern sort of read, definitely check out JMS, because I have become a fan of his very quickly. John Romita Jr.'s art is also very awesome and stellar to look at. So yeah, I cannot wait to dive into volume 3, because I literally bought this at the beginning of June, but the way that Gmart shipping worked, it was like kind of weird and like I didn't really get it. So it like delayed the shipping of it by accident. But anyways, JMS, Spider-Man, I will definitely talk about it more when I get to them. Okay, my slew of Batman reads. I have so many Batman trades that I read just because I was like, I have so many of them and I just need to go and get through them. So I was like, let me just start off with Batman Detective Comics by Tom Taylor. If you guys don't know me, Nightwing by Tom Taylor is like one of my favorite DC runs, period. And that was my gateway into that character. So when I found out that he was doing this Batman comic, I was like, oh, okay, I'll go and pick it up through the trades. I could read it every month if I really wanted to, but I think I'm going to stick with the trades because for one, it's cheaper, and two, my pull list is already stacked as is. But what made me want to read it even more was that I saw that the guest artist is Lee Garbett. That's the guy doing Daredevil right now. And I was like, oh, so the art's still going to be peak, you know? Like the main guy that does the art, Mikkel Janin, hopefully I said that right. But the fact that Lee Garbett was like the guest artist here, I was like, oh, okay, like it's still going to be great art. And obviously Tom Taylor's writing for Batman is still awesome as well. So I blitzed through this so freaking fast. And I really love the way that it is written, the way that it is drawn. I think the annual's in here as well. And like the first part of the story is no text whatsoever. It's literally just Batman helping a kid find his dog. And it is just so beautiful and so sweet. And yeah, you know, just some really, really great Batman stories here of him just trying to find out crimes and sort of solve mysteries and all of that other stuff. I will definitely be picking up volume 3 when that releases. Okay, so next Batman read I decided to read is Batman the Imposter. And the reason why I bought this was because I saw it at a Ollie's, which is like a discount store. And I try to go there every once in a while just to check out their trades, because sometimes they got some really great deals like this one. I got this for like less than $10. Retail price is $30. And I hear that this is a great Batman story. So pretty much this is, I think, early on within Batman's career. I can't exactly say for sure, but pretty much there is a fake Batman going on. And Batman / Bruce Wayne has to sort of, you know, make sure that like this Batman isn't like doing so much damage to his own name. And, you know, the other Batman is doing some crazy stuff. He's like killing people. He's doing really reckless things. And the story takes a really interesting turn. And this is written by Mattson Tomlin, who is the current writer on the Batman Part 2. So that's going to be very interesting to see how this book might translate into the movie within some way, shape, or form in terms of like how Bruce Wayne and Batman are as a character, because this book is great. I really, really enjoyed it. And I think that if you are a Batman fan in any way, shape, or form, you want to read something a little bit new, a little bit different, this miniseries will definitely give you that. And yeah, you know, just like the basic premise of like Batman having a imposter because he is a mass vigilante, it's like pretty simple, but I think the way that it is executed is like near perfect, honestly. So So this was a random read because I bought it last month and I didn't expect myself to read it, but I was like, I should read it because there is a sequel series of it coming out next month, and that is Batman and Robin Year One. And the sequel series, still written by Mark Waid and drawn by Chris Samnee, is Batman and Robin Year One dynamic duo, I believe, which that is now on my pull list because this, I believe it is 12 issues. I blitzed through this so freaking fast. I love Dick Grayson. Obviously, I talked about Nightwing earlier. So just to see a comic book of just him and Batman within the early years, their conflicts, and sort of how they become like pillars for one another, you know, like Batman needs Robin and Robin needs Batman, etc., etc. And also just to see how Dick Grayson, you know, gets more accustomed into the Bruce Wayne family. You know, there is some shenanigans with that stuff. And also just like this hardcover, when I read hardcovers and they have like slips like this, I like to take them off. But bro, this hardcover is beautiful. The artwork is like everywhere. So obviously you have this. Then on the inside you have even more artwork, and it just looks beautiful. I got this because I bought it during Target's buy two get one free sale. I got it for like a really like deep discount, and I'm so glad that I did. I mean, if you can read this through the hardcover, I definitely recommend it. But if you want to go through the trade paperback, I don't blame you. It is definitely cheaper. But this story, 12 issues, so fast to go and just read through. And I was going to pick up Batman Year One dynamic duos within the trade when that eventually came out, but after reading this, I was like hooked. I was like, okay, I kind of need more of like this early years with like Batman and Robin, and sort of Robin as Dick Grayson also. I was like, I need more of that. So I'm definitely gonna be checking out the new series, and if you want something that's very easy to digest, whether you're a new Batman reader, a sort of veteran, I definitely could recommend this one very easily. And the last Batman book that I read, which was a surprise because I blitzed through this one also, which is Batman Year One. This is a iconic story written by Frank Miller and drawn by David Mazzucchelli. Hopefully I said that right, but I can definitely see Chris Samnee sort of taking influence from David's work, because David definitely has like that sort of art style that's very much like cartoony, but still like gritty and dark. And Frank Miller's writing here is also just amazing. So obviously this is within the first year of Bruce Wayne becoming Batman, but you're not just following Bruce Wayne, you're also following Captain Gordon and sort of seeing how he came into sort of Gotham City PD and how he's navigating that, the corruption, the sort of things that he's going through. Gordon is such an interesting character within this book that I am kind of in shock that not more adaptations of Batman take from this version of Jim Gordon, because he's messy. He is not a sort of squeaky clean guy. Like, there's a reason why he went to Gotham PD, and it's because he's human. And we get to see that within this book. Obviously, the Bruce Wayne and Batman side of stuff is still great and amazing, but I was very surprised to see how much of Jim Gordon's character was fleshed out, and I was very happy with this series. And I definitely want to read Year Two, which I believe is like the sequel book. I don't know if that's also written by Frank Miller and drawn by David as well, but I guess I'll find out when I get to it. I could definitely pick up the DC's Finest because it has this story alongside Year Two. I'm still thinking about it. You know, like I said, I read through a lot of these books earlier before, other than Batman and Robin Year One, because these were on like my backlog of like just comic books that I need to read because I've had them for a while. Speaking of books that I needed to read, out of all of the Absolute titles when it comes to the Holy Trinity, the only one that I didn't read was Absolute Wonder Woman. And after reading the first couple of issues within here, I bought volume 2 and I blitzed through this so fast. It is honestly my first time reading something from Kelly Thompson, Hayden Sherman. I read Batman Dark Patterns last month, so I was definitely very familiar with his work, but the paneling within here and just obviously the art itself is fantastic. The way that this book is structured and how we jump from past to present and sort of slowly unveiling Wonder Woman's backstory, because she was raised in hell. That is like the biggest sort of thing that they made change for Wonder Woman, was that like she didn't have, you know, her people. She was raised in hell, and still she became Wonder Woman, and very much a figure that wanted to see the best in others, if you will. And within volume 2, you know, they obviously expand more upon that within the sort of mythological realm, if you will, with like sort of creatures and all of that other stuff. Definitely took me a little bit longer to read this one as opposed to this volume, but still, Kelly Thompson, Hayden Sherman, they are killing it. It was still not good enough for me to add it to my pull list. Once again, like I said, I already have a lot on my pull list, and I think I am okay with just reading it through the trades because it is still such a good read. Let's just round out the DC trilogy because I also read Superman Red Son. This is a iconic Superman story where instead of landing on Earth, he landed in Soviet Russia, or the Soviet Union, if you will. And, you know, I was definitely expecting something different, maybe just because my notion as a American to be like, oh, the Soviet Union's evil, but they still have a lot of traits of like Superman, like as a character, like he still wants to do good. It's just that just because he was born and raised, or not born, just like raised within Soviet Russia, Soviet Union, he's not a bad guy, which they still stay true to the Superman character, which I really liked, you know, and we get to see how the other characters within sort of Superman's crew are, like Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, Lex Luthor, like they are still in this story, just within a different capacity. Even other DC characters appear, which I won't spoil. But yes, Superman Red Son is definitely very, very good. Definitely not as good as I expected, but I think, you know, it's like a solid 7 or 8 out of 10, I would say. So if you want to check it out, I believe this is now in a DC Compact sort of edition. So if you want to read that, definitely check it out. All right, last DC book before we get into the single issues and one-shots, if you will. We got Static Season 1. Shout out to my boy Damien. He gave this to me for Christmas, I believe, a couple years back. And I finally got around to reading it. And yeah, it is very, very good. The worst thing about this book is that they tease Static Season 2 at the end here, I believe. And it's supposed to come out within like summer or something. It was supposed to come out like a while ago, and it just did not happen. So I'm just like, guys, where is Static Season 2? I have no idea where they're going with that, but I would just love to see more of this version of Static because it is definitely a much more modernized take on the character, which is suited. Yeah, I'll show it to you. It says Static Season 2, Summer 2022. It's 2026, baby. What the hell's going on? So obviously something's going on there. Maybe they have some other plans for Static. Maybe they want to bring this version of him maybe somewhere else within the DC universe. I don't know. But like I said, this is a very modern take on the character. And I think that if you have never read a Static comic book, you could jump into this one just like I did. And, you know, it's been years since I've watched an episode of the Static Shock TV show. But still, just jumping into this was still a lot of fun. And I think it is definitely worth checking out. The art style is definitely not my cup of tea. It definitely feels a lot more like a webtoons comic, which isn't necessarily an insult. It's just something that I'm not used to within like a modern sort of comic book that you would find on like store shelves, if you will. But anyways, let's get into the single issues. So let's jump back to Marvel for a bit and talk about Avengers Armageddon by Chip Zdarsky. This is pretty much the culmination of like everything that he's been doing between Captain America and Wolverine Armageddon. And yeah, it's a solid first issue. Not necessarily one that had me like turning the pages every so often, you know, but I think the cliffhanger is like solid, not necessarily anything like mind-blowing or like extraordinary, but I am excited to see where this Avengers run goes to lead into the new Avengers run featuring Marco Cicchetto and Chip Zdarsky reuniting with Spider-Man, Daredevil, Luke Cage, a couple of other characters in there that I'm just like, how is that the current Avengers team? So I want to see how this book ends so we could go and get to there. I decided to read this because I'm going to be picking up the new facsimile reprints with the new artists sort of covers. So I have JLA Avengers 2 with the Dan Mora cover, but this is the first issue drawn by Ryan Stegman. And I've never read this. This is definitely a very, very wordy book. But just to see how the Avengers and the Justice League sort of clash together, first time within, I think, the 90s or something like that, it's definitely a different book, and I definitely really enjoyed reading it just because it is so different. I definitely want to go back and read some of the older comic books that I have within my collection, just because I always felt daunted by like the big word bubbles and like the amount of text within a book. But I think when it's written well, like this book, I think you could really get past it. So, if you want to go and pick up these new facsimiles, you can, or if you want to read it all online or pick up one of the older trades, you can do that. But like I said, I am picking these up because I think there is a Alex Ross connecting cover that is going to be issues 3 and 4, and I'm excited to add those to my collection. Summer of Supergirl special. So obviously to coincide with the Supergirl movie, which I talked about on my podcast, which I thought was mid, which is kind of like worse than bad in my opinion. But anyways, this book is actually not that bad. It does connect a little bit to the current Supergirl run and a couple of other things. But as someone who's not reading those books whatsoever, I still had a fun time just reading this book and just having a blast with it. I think that if you want to check it out, you can. I think if you are someone that was a little stung by the Supergirl movie, maybe don't pick this up. Definitely just go and reread Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, or read that for the first time, because I think that that is a impeccable story. You say what you will about Tom King, I think that that story is like amazing. But this book, it was fine. It was good. I think, like I said, if you want to read it, go and read it. So this is a book that I did not expect myself to pick up just because I'm waiting for the trade on this one, but a comic book store within my area, Golden Memories, they do a ongoing sale with their brand new books. It's buy 5 and you get 2 free, so 7 books in total. So I was picking up a couple and I was like, I gotta fill out the 7. So I bought Barbara Gordon Breakout. And when I read the Batman issue that leads into this miniseries, I was like, wow, that's like such like a insane cliffhanger to end it off with Barbara Gordon going to prison. And I was gonna, like I said, pick up the trade for it, but because they had the first issue, I was like, let me go and sample it. Let me go and check it out. Definitely a solid 7 or 8 out of 10 issue. It wasn't, like I said, mind-blowing or necessarily anything extravagant. It was definitely solid throughout, and I think that's all you could really ask for like comic books today, honestly. But I definitely want to still pick up the trade. I think that what they're doing with Barbara within prison and sort of how that stuff's going on is definitely a interesting setup. But because this is a brand new miniseries, there's definitely a lot of just dialogue and things of them just like, making sure that like the reader can follow along without knowing what came before. So, definitely valid, definitely fair. But I hear that issues 2 and now issue 3 are pretty good. I am trying to hold myself off from buying those single issues and just buy the entire trade when that releases, whenever. All right. Last bit we got here is we got to talk about the Absolute Batman and Absolute Catwoman. I'm kind of cheating here because this literally came out this week, but I will talk about this last, and I will not talk about spoilers because I don't really want to talk about spoilers. But Absolute Catwoman, this is the new miniseries with the character, and it was very, very solid. I think that what they're doing with the Catwoman character within the Absolute series is definitely very interesting, and I think that this miniseries is gonna, sort of jump off and really take the character into another level. And at the end, they tease another Batman character that, if you've been looking at sort of solicitations and sort of what's coming up for the Absolute series, you might have been spoiled by it, but still, just seeing that within like the final couple pages, I was like, whoa, what the hell? But yeah, I really am enjoying Absolute Catwoman. Still have to read issue 2 because I only had time to read the newest issue of Absolute Batman. I think that this is a book that if you are reading comics every single month, you just have to add it to your pull list because it is just so freaking good. I don't know how Scott Snyder does it, but this issue was insane. This is the backstory issue for Harley Quinn, and that stuff is great, phenomenal. But the way that it sets up the current story and the twist at the end, I was like, what is happening? And I definitely might want to go and reread the other Absolute Batman issues, because the way I started to read Absolute Batman was that I read the first 2 trades and then I picked up all of the other issues, the reprints and whatnot, to go and catch up. And I definitely have to buy the trade paperback for volume 3 and then just reread that, just because I feel like I'm missing some stuff, like just like small details. I'm still able to like follow along, but how did we get here? Like, it is just so crazy. So yeah, that's everything that I have for my comic vlog for the month of June. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully I'm not as late for next month. If you guys want, you can subscribe and put new videos out whenever. I have a main gaming channel called TV Sonic Gaming. You can check me out on there. I'm there a lot more often. And yeah, check out my socials at TV Sonic Gaming, and check my podcast called the Travis Damon Podcast, about games and pop culture every other week. And that is all I have for today. Thank you guys for watching this video once again. Now, see you guys next time with more videos.